Welcome to my video, How Much to Charge for Business Consulting. This video I'm going to share with you the 3 typical consulting fee strategies and the one that's the absolute best. The way I've structured this video is we're going to start with the 3 most typical consulting fee strategies. Then I'm going to share with you the problem with 2 of them and why number 3 is really the best one and the solution to that problem. And then I'm going to get into how you can implement that fee strategy for yourself. Let's go. The first typical way that consultants charge is by the hour. Charging based on time is a great way to make sure that you're not over investing in a project. The problem with that strategy though is it generally creates a disconnect between your best interests and the client's best interest. And even if there isn't really a disconnect, even if you're totally connected to your client's best interests, but you're charging by the hour, it can create the sense of or the feeling of mistrust. I'm gonna give you an example. Think about the profession that gets made fun of the most when it comes to trust or mistrust. It's lawyers, isn't it? Right? Well, I believe, it's my theory, that one of the biggest reasons that people don't trust lawyers is because lawyers generally charge by the hour. Lawyers are basically a type of consultant. You're paying them for their expertise and their work product, right? Now, the problem with lawyers, if you've ever worked with one, when they charge you by the hour is, don't you wonder sometimes if they really needed all those hours? Don't you wonder sometimes if they might not be dragging out a process or a case because they get paid more the longer the case goes on? The truth is that because lawyers get paid by the hour, it creates a fundamental disconnect. It's in their best interest to have more hours in order to make more money, and it's in your best interest to have fewer hours and pay less money. So that creates that tension and that disconnect. So charging by the hour is actually my least favorite strategy. The second type of fee-based strategy is often a target return based strategy, meaning basically saying, all right, for this project, if I invest this many hours, I want to make this much money back. Now, the problem with that, besides the fact that it kind of has some of the same problems as the first strategy we talked about, one of the problems with this strategy is that essentially it disconnects you again from your client's best interest. It's all about you. You're basically basing your fee based on what you want out of this relationship rather than the client. Before I get into the third type of pricing strategy, I want to highlight a couple more problems with the first 2 types. One of those problems is that it limits your profits as a consultant, as a professional. Now, I understand that the reason people charge by the hour is because they want to make sure they don't overwork and not get compensated. But the fact is, think about it. When you charge by the hour, the more efficient you get, the less money you make. In other words, there's a disconnect, again, between your best interest and the client's best interest. It's in the client's best interest for you to invest in yourself, for you to invest in technology, for you to become more efficient and more effective, right? That's all good for the client. But why would that be bad for you? Well, the more efficient you get, the less time it takes you to do something, the less money you make. So as you improve and as you gain experience, you would make less money and have to get more clients to fill up those hours, and you'd have to work more and have a bigger workload in order to make the same amount or more money. That doesn't make any sense. In other words, the better you get, the worse you're compensated. That doesn't make any sense. If you're enjoying this video and getting value out of it, then I invite you to consider clicking the subscribe button, clicking the little alert button so that you get alerts whenever I drop a new video, which I do almost daily. And please hit the like button, maybe make a comment below about what you got out of this video. The solution to all these problems and all these disconnects between you and your client, and the solution to generating more profit, is actually the third type of pricing, which is value-based pricing. Value-based pricing is essentially basing your price on the value to the client, the value of the outcome to the client. Now, here's the thing about value-based pricing. It's not a science. It's more of an art than a science. And it's something that, just like almost anything in your business, the more you develop the skill around pricing, the better you're gonna be and the more profitable you're gonna be. So that's my disclaimer off the top. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it is worth it. What you want to do is base the cost of what you're offering on the outcome to the client instead of the hours. I like to say charge for outcomes instead of hours. Here's what this looks like. I'm going to use the example of a public relations agency. I don't know about you, but I've worked with several public relations companies in my career. When I first started working with public relations, I always thought that you had to hire them by the hour. And that's what I always did. And I remember once investing in a PR agency that charged me by the hour and said what they were gonna do is they were gonna write me a press release. They were gonna send the press release out to all their contacts. They were gonna connect with the contacts and talk to everybody. And they would try to get me into the media. They would try to get me and my event into the newspapers. Now, I spent maybe $2,000 or $3,000 by the hours, like $100 an hour, in this company that was doing this outreach, and I got no results. And I remember being on the phone with them and like, wow, I invested all this money and I got no results. Like, what are you gonna do about that? Thinking that they would wanna make it right somehow. And they're like, well, no, I mean, this is how it is. Public relations is not guaranteed. We do the work and we can show you, we can prove to you that we made all these calls, we have the call logs, but nobody wanted to run your story, so sorry, that was it. I was like, wow, that didn't feel so good. A couple years later, I met a PR person who said that she worked very different from most agencies. She had a value-based pricing, and the way she operated was that she would give me a list of media, and I would check off the media that I wanted, and next to each one would be a price. And if she was successful in getting me that media, I would pay her that money. So the price list was like $500 for like a small feature, or $1,200 for something bigger, $2,500 for the cover of the Miami Herald. So she had all these different specific options, and I checked off the boxes. And a few weeks later, she said, hey, I got you into the Miami Herald. I got you all these placements. And I was like, wow, how did you do that? You must have spent hours doing that. She's like, actually, I went to college with the woman who edits the business section of this paper, and I know this one from there. And I just called them up and, let them know that I really thought this was a great story. And they said yes. Now, I ended up paying her a lot more than that first company, a lot more, because she got much, much better results. And I had no problem with that. I was thrilled to pay her more. And it didn't bother me one bit that she had hardly spent any time getting me these placements, because all I cared about was the outcome. Now think about it. If she had charged me by the hour, she would have made way less money. But the fact that she based her price on value meant that we both were happy. So here's the thing. I am fully aware that it's harder to set price in this way. It requires you getting really clear about your client's outcomes, what you're willing to promise. It requires you up-leveling your performance. You've got to be better at what you do to charge this way. That second PR person was much more effective than the first, and she had to stand in the power of her connections and her expertise. The first one was just selling time for money. It takes something to really understand what the value is to the client. Now, a few ways that you can do this. Number one, you could consider it as a success fee, a percentage of what a client saves or a percentage of what a client generates from working with you. So let's say a client is going to generate $100,000 from working with you, then potentially charging 10% of that could be a success fee. And speaking of success fees, that's a great way to do it too. You could even charge by the hour for your base rate and then create a success fee for when you achieve certain goals or parameters. So there are lots of ways to play with this, and I highly encourage you to consider other ways that you might charge for your services that have nothing to do with your time. And that way you can raise your prices and bring them into alignment with the actual value you deliver. It doesn't matter to a client how many hours you spend on something as long as they get the outcomes that they're seeking. And generally, clients are willing to spend more to guarantee those outcomes. And finally, consider that you might run into some resistance, especially especially from your colleagues. I remember when I helped a hypnotherapist come up with this new pricing strategy based on outcomes, and all of her colleagues gave her a hard time. She almost didn't do it. She came back to me. I remember she was almost in tears saying that people were saying that she was not a good hypnotist and that there's no way that she could charge that way and that she was hurting them and hurting their industry by trying to shift in this direction. But let me tell you something, she very quickly became way more profitable than those same colleagues by having packages that were based on outcomes and performance rather than based on sessions and time. If this sounds exciting to you and you're thinking about, how could I implement this? And you think I might be able to help, then visit superstaractivator.com/go and set up a time for us to talk and explore if and how I may be able to support you in pricing your services more effectively so you can make more money without selling your time and effort.